Abraham's calling marks one of the most pivotal shifts in biblical history. In a world recovering from the flood, where scattered tribes had hardened into cultures shaped by idolatry, a solitary voice rose. A voice inviting one man to step out of human security into divine promise. Detailed narrative follows, exploring Abraham's cultural context in Ur of the Chaldeans, his internal struggles, God's call with layered meaning, his departure of faith, arrival in Canaan, altars erecti, the Egypt passage and the moral cost. God's reiteration of promise at Bethel, tension with Lot and separation, God's vision and promise of land, and countless descendants. Abraham's recurring pattern of faith and failure. Key covenantal markers like circumcision, the command to sacrifice Isaac, spiritual evaluation of Abraham's faith, lineage calling, Abraham's legacy, theological reflection on how this calling foreshadows God's redemptive plan through Christ, and rich spiritual applications for adult readers. Throughout 4,000 words, the narrative examines Abraham's emotional and spiritual journey, from comfort to exile, fear to faith, compromise to trust. We see the tension between divine sovereignty and human frailty. We trace how each moment an altar built, an intercession prayed, a test endured prepares him for his role as father of many nations. This expanded narrative includes detailed descriptions of locations: Haran, Shechem, Bethel, Hebron, Egypt, cultural customs, Abraham's human foibles, God's character, covenant theology, and the unfolding drama of promise. It explores rich themes: obedience and uncertainty, leadership amid family tension, faith tested by famine, and moral compromise, genealogical movement of blessing, and theological reflection on how Abraham's calling inaugurates God's mission to bless all peoples. The call came not with thunder, nor by temple priests, but quietly an invisible invitation whispered into the soul of a man named Abram. He lived in Ur of the Chaldeans, a flourishing center of commerce and pagan worship, where the moon god Nana reigned over temples and rituals. Abram, already advanced in age, was comfortable settled with family, property, and familiarity. But God said, "Leave your country, your people, and your father's household, and go to the land I will show you." No map, no timeline, no guarantee, except the word of a God he could not see. The cost of obedience was immense. To walk away from land was to walk away from inheritance. To separate from family was to risk isolation and shame. Yet Abram's heart stirred with a faith not born of logic but vulnerable trust. He gathered his wife Sarai, his nephew Lot, and their possessions. Together, they began the long, uncertain journey toward Canaan. It was not a straight path, nor an easy one. They faced famine, foreign rulers, moral compromises, and family conflict. When famine struck Canaan, Abram fled to Egypt, where he deceived Pharaoh to protect himself, claiming Sarai was his sister. The cost of fear is always relational. Pharaoh's household suffered. God intervened, restoring Sarai and rebuking Abram's lack of trust. But grace remained. Back in Canaan, God renewed his promise. "To your offspring, I will give this land." Abram built altars not to gods of stone, but to the invisible, living God. Worship became his anchor. Conflict soon arose between Abram's herdsmen and Lot's. With humility, Abram offered Lot the better land, choosing peace over pride. Lot chose the fertile plain of the Jordan, near Sodom. Abram remained in the less desirable hills. But again, God spoke. "Lift up your eyes. All the land that you see, I will give to you and your offspring forever." Time passed, Sarai remained barren. The promise seemed delayed. Doubt crept in. Abram asked God, "What can you give me since I remain childless?" God answered not with rebuke, but with vision. He took Abram outside and said, "Look up at the heavens and count the stars, so shall your offspring be." Abram believed, and it was credited to him as righteousness. Still, Abram faltered. At Sarai's urging, he took Hagar, her maidservant, and fathered a child Ishmael. The consequences of that choice would echo for generations. But God's promise was not revoked. He renamed Abram to Abraham, father of many nations, and Sarai to Sarah. The covenant was sealed with circumcision, a visible mark of faith. Years later, when Abraham was tested again, called to offer Isaac, the promised son, as a sacrifice, the same faith that led him out of Ur rose within him. He climbed the mountain with Isaac, wood on the boy's back, fire, and knife in hand. Isaac asked, "Father, where is the lamb for the sacrifice?" Abraham replied, "God will provide." And he did. At the last moment, a ram caught in the thicket spared Isaac. God reaffirmed his covenant. "Because you have obeyed, I will bless you, and through your offspring, all nations will be blessed." Abraham's journey was not perfect, but it was faithful. He stumbled, doubted, lied, and struggled. But he also believed, built altars, listened, and obeyed. He became the father of nations, not through moral perfection, but through spiritual trust.